So today we're going to check out a list of tips that Thelonious Monk, the great jazz pianist and composer, gave to Steve Lacy, who was a saxophone player playing in Monk's band around 1960 or so. There's this Xerox copy of the list that has been circulating in the jazz community for the past couple of decades, and I thought it would be kind of fun to go through this list and explore it and see if any of the tips inspire you. Now, just like the music of Thelonious Monk, some of these tips require a little bit of context to fully appreciate. So I thought I would talk to my friend Brian Krock, who runs the big band Big Heart Machine and also has a very excellent YouTube channel. Go check it out, to find out a little bit more context behind why Steve Lacy wrote these tips down specifically and what they mean for musicians both back then and today.
I mean, the background to why he wrote these down sheds a lot of light on them for me, because Lacy was only 26 years old. Monk hired Lacy for this 16-week stint in 1960 at the Gallery. They were playing for 16 weeks in a double bill with Coltrane, with the first iteration of his classic quartet. So I feel like if you're a 26-year-old Steve Lacy, you're living your wildest dream, because for 16 weeks, every single night, you're first listening to Coltrane play soprano saxophone, which is Lacy's instrument, and then you're getting to play with his biggest hero of all time, which was Monk. Monk was giving him tons of advice, and he was just writing down the impressions that you know what I mean?
So let's just jump right into it. The first 3 tips have a lot to do with time feel and making sure that you're locked in with your fellow musicians. Number 1, just because you're not a drummer doesn't mean that you don't have to keep time. That one's pretty self-explanatory. It's very important for every musician to be responsible for their own time feel. Number 2, pat your foot and sing the melody in your head when you play. Another super practical piece of advice, moving your body to the music and also pre-hearing the music and the melody in your head before you play it helps you connect with the music and the people around you in a much more organic way. Number 3, make the drummer sound good.
To me, what that means is lock into the groove. I think oftentimes people get into the zone where they're shredding their most abstract stuff, and then that actually hurts the groove. Monk's music, as abstract as it was, fundamentally it was dance music. Monk would get up and dance, and it always grooved so hard.
Number 4, stop playing all that bullshit, those weird notes. Play the melody. I love this one in particular because it almost goes contrary to the popular understanding of Monk's music. People generally think of his music as being weird and angular and dissonant and outside, but for Monk, it was all about the melody.
Yeah, stop playing all that bullshit, those weird notes. Play the melody. That's such good advice, because you're not gonna play anything. You're just not gonna play anything that's gonna blow Thelonious Monk's mind. You and I aren't gonna play anything that's gonna blow Branford Marsalis's mind. They've heard everything. They know it all. You have to come to the acceptance that you're not gonna impress.
Number 5, discrimination is important. Now, obviously, Thelonious Monk is not referencing racial discrimination. No, it's more about the ability to distinguish between 2 different things, to have a discriminating taste, basically. There's this great story from Robin Kelly's biography of Thelonious Monk, where Robin Kelly, for a long time, has been trying to sound like Monk by playing all this dissonant stuff in these weird angular intervals. And Monk comes to him in a dream and says that the reason why he's not sounding like Monk is that he is playing the wrong mistakes. And I love that. Wrong mistakes. Discriminating between mistakes is very important. Number 6, you've got to dig it to dig it. You dig? You have to love it to play it. You understand? Number 7, all reet. This probably was just one of Thelonious Monk's sayings, all reet. It's an old school way of saying all right. There's a Cab Calloway song called Are You All Reet?
All I want to know, are you all reet? Yes, we're all reet.
Steve Lacy apparently thought that it was important enough to write down, so all right. Number 8, always know, ... Yeah, this one sounds mysterious, but the hidden mystery is that the word know is Monk backwards if the W was flipped upside down. Monk would say always know kind of as a mantra, and then he had this little ring that he would flip to show people that it was Monk backwards. It's cool, but not quite as mysterious as it might seem. Number 9, I want to avoid the hecklers. This is just solid advice for anybody, honestly. It's the 1960s version of don't read the comment section. Number 10, It must always be night, otherwise they wouldn't need the lights.
It must always be night. That's like a Zen koan right there, you know? So maybe the mindset of, even if you're playing a matinee, get in the mindset of like you're playing at 3 a.m. or something. I'm grasping at straws.
Number 11, let's lift the bandstand.
Monk has a background of like touring with like gospel singers and stuff. And so that kind of makes me think of that, like levitating the bandstand, just like playing with so much spirit and connection to the universe.
Number 12, don't play the piano part. I'm playing that. Don't listen to me. I'm supposed to be accompanying you.
Don't play what the piano's playing. I'm already playing that. You can understand how like a 26-year-old Steve Lacy would be trying really hard to like impress Monk.
Number 13, the inside of the tune, the bridge, is the part that makes the outside sound good. I love this one because it applies to any style of music, not just jazz, but electronic music maybe, or classical music, or rock, or whatever. The contrast between a bridge, or like a B section, and the A section, or like a chorus, is the thing that really highlights what makes that A section special. It's a really good piece of advice. Number 14, don't play everything or every time. Let some things go by. Some music just imagined. This one's very similar to the next one. Number 15, what you don't play can be more important than what you do play. This is a piece of advice that's repeated so often that it's kind of become a bit of a meme.
Sounds like she's hitting a baby with a cat.
You have to listen to the notes she's not playing.
But one thing that is important to mention is that Monk valued silence quite a lot in his music. Silence can be used as a tool. There can be a lot of tension in silence. And if you're a musician, that can be a very useful tool in your arsenal. Number 16, a note can be as small as a pin or as big as the world. It depends on your imagination. I love this one. It kind of speaks to how much of yourself you can put into a single note. And the more you can do that, the more you can channel your creative creative injuries. The more you can channel your creative energies into a note, the bigger or smaller it can be. Number 17, stay in shape. Sometimes a musician wants for a gig, and when it comes, he's out of shape and can't make it.
Could there be a more applicable piece of advice to the age of COVID? 2021 and 2022, we're going to have like a couple years of like lower than average proficiency on the bandstand because people are going to be out of shape. One of the craziest gigs that I've ever had in my life was like Adam Larson, great saxophone player, called me at like noon one day and he was like, "Hey Brian, can you be at the Beacon Theater in 2 hours in a tuxedo?" And I was like, sure. I get there and it turns out that the music director for Jamie Cullum had thrown out his back at the airport and couldn't play their gig that night. And so I was going to sub for this guy. And I didn't know any of Jamie's music, unfortunately. We did a sound check, like a long sound check to get me caught up to speed. The guys in Jamie's band are all incredible musicians, so they like supported the situation. But even still, if only I had gotten up early that morning and warmed up and stuff. I didn't have time to do any of that. I wish I would have been in better shape. But I always think about that situation. You're gonna get that phone call.
Jamie Cullum will call you. He calls everybody.
Eventually.
When that happens, remember Thelonious Monk's advice. Number 18, when you're swinging, swing some more. If you're playing music and you're really in the groove and things are feeling good, don't just rest on the fact that things are feeling good. Make an active effort to make them feel even better. You could actually apply this same logic to games and sports, because if you're winning a game, don't rest on the fact that you're winning. Try and win by an even greater margin. If you're swinging, swing some more. 19, what should we wear tonight? Sharp as possible. Yeah, that's another thing that I need to work on too.
And whenever I think of that one, I immediately think of Christian Sands, because he was always the sharpest dressed guy in the room, no matter where he was. I never have been. I'm like a Midwestern schlub. So I always try to keep that in mind because it's such important practical advice.
Number 20, always leave them wanting more. Self-explanatory. Number 21, don't sound anybody for a gig, just be on the scene. I feel like with lists of tips like this, there might be one or two of them that really stick with you for a long time. For whatever reason, they just keep coming back to you as like this little earworm. And in the case of this one, for whatever reason, this one stuck with me. Don't sound anybody for a gig, just be on the scene.
I'm sure that we've all made the mistake of asking somebody like, hey, hire me or whatever, and asking for a gig is just never going to work. But being around, being like a good hang, being nice, getting to know musicians that you like and not bothering them, those kinds of things you have to just learn from experience will eventually lead you somewhere.
Number 22. Those pieces were written so as to have something to play and to get cats interested enough to come to rehearsal. The takeaway I have from this is you shouldn't write music for your audience. You should write music for the musicians that will be playing it. If the band wants to be playing your music because you wrote it for them, then the audience hopefully will want to listen. And also, hopefully the band will show up to rehearsal. Number 23, you've got it. If you don't want to play, tell a joke or dance, but in any case, you got it, to a drummer who didn't want to solo.
Probably Steve wrote that after a set where Monk was yelling that, you got it, because I mean, that happens all the time. You got it. And then you're like, oh shit, what do I do? Probably not to Roy Haynes, who would have been playing at the time.
Number 24. Whatever you think can't be done, somebody will come along and do it. A genius is the one most like himself.
I think the deepest one and the most oft quoted one is, a genius is a man most like himself. That's great. I don't know what else more needs to be said. I used to live on the same floor as Patrick Bartley, and he was like obsessed with imagining like Charlie Parker in the room with him, or like when we would like listen to records together, he'd be like imagining them as real people, which is always hard for a young person to do because you put the artists you love on this platform that they're inhuman. But at the end of the day, they're just hardworking individuals who like put a lot of time and effort into the craft that they love, you know?
Number 25. They tried to get me to hate white people, but someone would always come along and spoil it.
They tried to get me to hate white people, but someone would always come along and spoil it. I think that's a specific reference to Steve Lacy. Steve was like a first-generation American from Russian immigrant parents living in New York, you know, and then he was playing in a band with Charlie Rouse and Roy Haynes and John Orr, and really committed to jazz. So,
you know, I love this list of tips because it says something about the relationship of Thelonious Monk to a protege, Steve Lacy. And it also says something about what Thelonious Monk himself valued in music. If a genius is the one that is most like themselves, then Thelonious Monk is a great genius of music.
Are we really supposed to believe that every single certified Apple repair technician is a genius? You know,
they are the ones most like themselves.
That's the only question on the interview. If you want to work at an Apple store,
I'll definitely work that one in. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Go check out Brian Krock and his channel. He is a great musician, a good friend, and has some fantastically detailed analyses of music over on his YouTube channel. Yeah, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, peace.